W420radionetwork.com.
Hey, cannabis fans, I don't know if you believe in the afterlife, but I think I found heaven on earth right here at Luma Farms, kind of a boutique grow in Penngrove, California, just about an hour north of San Francisco. And we're here with the director of cultivation, the amazing Enzo. You're the botanist, you're the horticultural guy, you're the guru of weed, man. What do we got going on here? This is phenomenal.
Here we have organically grown, regenerative, sustainable practices, utilizing living soil, working with cover plants and cover crops and organisms, and building soil health.
Yeah, now
ultimately.
You talk about living soil. What is that all about? Because there's a different. We had Patrick King, the soil king, on.
Oh,
He was
yeah,
talking about
yeah.
There's dirt that's dead, and there's soil that's living, and that's what you want, and that's what you have.
Absolutely. Living soil has to do with organisms and the communities of organisms that are in the soil, earthworms and other plant species. Living soil utilizes these organisms to cycle the nutrients instead of relying on synthetic plant available soluble fertilizer. These organisms in the living soil, which makes living soil, actually help feed the plants.
So now you guys are making hash oil, rosin. Tell me a little bit about rosin, which a lot of people may not even know about.
Rosin is made by heat and pressure being applied to bubble hash. It is the most refined concentrate made solventlessly that you can create.
Yeah. And about the soil, how key is it? I mean, there's commercial soils, there's so-called organic soils, but what are you looking for? What are some of the key considerations when you create the foundation for your plants?
Yeah, you want to build soil with quality inputs. You want to have foresight into drainage and moisture retention and all the different components that will allow your soil to function correctly. The best soil is native soil, is revitalizing native soil, and that's essentially what we're doing here.
So in your soil, we're talking about what you put into it to supplement it or give it added nutrients?
So constantly paying attention to the phase of the plant's life. We add organic amendments, organic matter in the form of different plants.
And I know you told me it's not just the plant in the raised bed. Their roots are going deep, so it's not like a planter, because that's going to inhibit the growth.
Absolutely.
So tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, here in the Petaluma Gap, where we are in Penngrove, we're on adobe, and I understand it to be ancient seabed, so highly mineralized, but also very compact. So that plays into terroir. It's one of the factors that you may or may not be able to have a say in, is the composition of this native soil.
So how many different varieties do you have, and are they from clones, from seed? What's the genesis?
Right now we have over 70 varieties. That is because we are hunting through some to find something special. Most everything here is from clone, but there was some seeds grown and clones taken from them to be tested. Okay, what's your fave and what's your go-to? My fave is actually one that I created a couple years ago called Lemon Limes, and it's extremely potent, and it leaves you wondering where you are.
In a good way.
In a
now,
good way.
I gotta ask you, some people are enamored with the THC.
Yes.
And Bob Stefano from Villa Paradiso up in, he's one of the Humboldt original high five guys, said to me, don't get caught up in THC. That's like telling me a Dodge Charger is a better car than a Ferrari.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are enamored with, oh, look, I got 30% THC. I love that.
It's very short-sighted.
Yeah, it's not the full spectrum. The entourage is more important, right?
Absolutely. You will not experience all that the plant has to offer if you're just going for a product with a high THC. A lot of those labs too are deceiving. So as a consumer, you may not be really getting what you're after, you know, and you're being sold kind of an effect with a ceiling, you know. It's going to kind of reach a point, and you're never going to get past that.
Well, again, it's not just about horsepower, right? And THC is the metaphor for the horsepower of the plant, but there's much more to it. So you're looking to create something that gives you maybe the nice buzz is a certain euphoric, full spectrum experience of the plant, whether it's medicinal, recreational, or whatever.
A lot of the focus lately has been on finding genetics that have very unique flavors, very profound, exotic flavors. When making hash and rosin, that's kind of the focus. People aren't really thinking about the THC percentage as much in that community or demographic. They are focused on the enjoyment of the flavor.
And with Enzo, the Director of Cultivation at Luma Farms here in Penngrove, California, I'm Rich Walcoff on the W420 Radio Network, and we'll be right back. Hey, we're returning to the scene of the farm, Luma Farms in Penngrove, California. I'm Rich Walcoff, along with Enzo, the Director of Cultivation, and Curtis Wall, the founder of Luma Farms. It's an amazing biodynamic, organic grow, and we were here a few months ago and it was close to harvest time, so it was the peak of the colas and the flowers, and now it's approaching winter time. What's going on? You've been working your tails off to create this product, fresh frozen, I'm hearing about for the first time. What's that all about?
Fresh frozen weed is capturing the resin in its quote-unquote live state as it was growing on the plant, without not letting it have the opportunity to dry. So you're freezing the plant while it's still green, while it's still got moisture in it and it's essentially still alive. And you're putting it into a frozen state to capture the essences, the terpenes, the cannabinoids, just as they were during the growth stages.
Yeah, and oxygen is the enemy, right? You don't want oxygen around it. You don't want light around it after you harvest. So tell me a little bit about that, Curtis, if you would.
Yeah, you definitely don't want, especially when you're drying cannabis in its dry form, you definitely don't want any light in there. It can degrade the terpenes and cannabinoids and all those different things. With fresh frozen, it goes right into a big bin and it goes into the freezer and it doesn't see any light until it gets to the extractor.
Now, how long do you have to keep it like that?
You have about 20 minutes to get it into the freezer from harvest before degradation sets in. As far as length of time in the freezer, if you have your parameters set correctly, you could live in the freezer for a couple years.
Wow. But what is your general timeline?
We would love to get it to the consumer as fast as possible. There's just all the hurdles of the regulations.
Now, well, you're doing it as a commercial, kind of a boutique grow, because you have the high end, it's the cleanest, you don't use any of the chemicals, it's living soil as you commonly talk about. But what about a home grow? I mean, I'm just an average Joe and I got a few plants and I want to cure, I want to dry, I want to cure and process. What are some of the tips that you could pass along as the expert growers?
I would say some great tips are put it in a dark room, hang it upside down, get a low airflow around it, not direct airflow, 60% humidity, 60 degrees temperature, and about 14 days.
Oh, good. I've done all those things. We had a big storm in Northern California a few weeks ago, and my home grow, those buds were just falling over. They were so wet. They had just soaked up all the rain, with 8 inches of rain. And thankfully, after 2 weeks with dehumidifiers and fans and everything, things have dried, and we're in the next phase of, now going to trim and jar them up. And then aerating in jars. What do you do in a commercial enterprise like this, even though, as I say, it's kind of boutique because you're not doing massive quantities, although it's a healthy number.
Yeah.
And then what would you do residentially or, the home grow?
So the home grow, I would treat every jar as an environment, and I would allow the gases, things off gassing, to build up in that jar. And then every other day I would burp it for 30 to 45 minutes until you reach a consistency, a moisture consistency that you really like.
Sure. Yeah. Now you guys have a specialty. You're not just growing great weed, and if we could bring in some of these beauties, you have a variety of crops. These are 8 samples, right? And what are you growing? And then not just for the flowers, which are magnificent, but you have something else going on that is it takes you to a whole nother level. So I'll defer to the founder here, Curtis.
Yeah, so we grow genetics that are supposed to be good for making hash. Things that are the customer's really going to want. They like very fruity flavors, desserts, things like that. Anything that's super unique and special that they can't find at any other place. So that's pretty much what we're looking for in our genetic selection for our outdoor.
Okay, so when you make hash, now Enzo told us a little bit about this in our first conversation, but part 2, maybe you can expand upon it. Tell us why what you do is so much better and why you do what you do.
Well, what we do is we grow cannabis in what we believe is the best way possible. And then we work with the best people in our industry and in our space to make the hash and the rosin. And those people take it from the freezer and they bring it into a cold room. It then goes into a washing machine. It could be hand stirred or it could be machine stirred depending on the infrastructure setup. They then pour that solution through a set of filters, catching the different size glands through all those different filters. Now you take the glands that have been caught in those filters and you put them into a freeze dryer. You effectively dry the glands, remove the moisture without letting them oxidize, without the presence of oxygen, because there's a vacuum on this freeze dryer. So now you pull out your resin and it's in a pristine state. It's white, it hasn't oxidized, it's all heads. And now you have the raw material to press rosin. Rosin is the refinement of hash. It is hash pressed through more filtration with heat and pressure.
Wow, wow. So if I hear something about diamonds and honey.
So diamonds are made just like in the environment and in the earth, heat and pressure. In the solventless world, you would put rosin into a jar and you would seal it and you would let that jar reach room temperature. That's the heat. The pressure is the seal, and you not breaking the seal and allowing those gases to build into that. So that's how we make solventless diamonds. How you make the BHO ones, that's a whole nother process that we don't really partake in.
Solvents are harsh, sometimes dangerous chemicals, but they're used in the process in most commercial hash manufacturing. You guys don't do that, and you tell me why, please.
We believe in healthy consumption. We grow in what we believe is the healthiest way to grow to produce the best produce for human consumption and the impact on the earth. When you use a thing like butane or any of those harsh volatile solvents to extract from a plant, it doesn't go hand in hand with the style of cultivation and the life that we like to live, the healthy lifestyle.
State of California and many states have very stringent regulations. So how is that monitored? And are you get that good seal of approval? Do you get that organic, butane-free tag on it when you create your rosin and such?
No, they don't offer anything like that. We couldn't even use the word organic on any of our packaging
That's
up to this
unfortunate,
date.
isn't it?
Yeah, it's bonkers. I think that there's something coming along through the pipeline where they're going to start allowing us to use the word organic.
Yeah, but think about it. Your process is more laborious and probably more costly and better. The other one is cheaper and more, volume oriented. So if the consumer is left in the dark, where's the win on that? I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't know. For the longest time, I was also left in the dark, kind of being new to the space and seeing the different consistencies and colors that I've never really seen before, because you're able to really filter out a lot of the darker sort of impurities in the flower and in the product. So for me, going to the dispensary, I was like, oh, this is great, But then it's over the past 2-3 years when I've only been smoking solventless strictly. I've really realized the difference going back, trying some of this, sauce or diamonds, or
right.
It hurts my throat.
Right.
And I'm not just saying that.
No, I bet. Yeah. It's sort of like when you get black market weed where you don't know what chemicals were put in to the process of growing it, whereas if you get it from a dispensary, it's authenticated in terms of that aspect of it. But the fact that they don't distinguish between what you're doing and the chemical infused or created hash and rosin is really baffling, as I say. So guys, I tried that, and man, it is freaking awesome. And it's smooth, it's clean, it's a really sweet high, and I just think you guys are killing it. By the way, we're in a studio that will rival anything I've ever been in. This is like Hollywood comes to Northern California, man. This is awesome. You've got state-of-the-art, everything going on, and I don't know about many grows that have a setup like you do here at Luma Farms. So tell me about what are we all about here?
Yeah, so this is Luma Studio, Luma Network. We're trying to, first and foremost, promote our brand, Luma. We're trying to think long term, 3 to 5 years. Once cannabis goes national, we're able to cross state lines and, sell to consumers everywhere. We want to make sure that, we're already in their hearts and minds.
Yeah, so you can create content as well as growing the great stuff, and then you could tell your story like you are here on the America's Cannabis Conversation. We're giving you a forum because I love your stuff and you guys are awesome. So Enzo, when you come into a studio like this and you get a chance to tell your tale, I mean, what are some of the secrets that you can reveal that we haven't discussed about your process of harvesting, curing, processing, and the like?
Genetic selection, maintaining the nursery space, mother rooms, the great amount of effort that goes into weathering the storms.
Yeah.
Speaking of storms, we just had a hell of a storm recently, which we weathered through harvest. Just the culmination of effort that goes into literally every layer. No shortcuts taken. We strive to do our best at every stage. We really believe and care about everything that we do here.
Yeah, now obviously I could tell, I could see it, I could taste it. But when you grow a few hundred plants versus these commercial grows, these massive commercial grows that may be growing thousands, differentiate. Tell me what's the difference between how you process, cure, and deliver your flowers and hash and rosin and the like versus the massive like agribusiness growth.
I'd put it in one word: care. We take the care and the thoughtfulness and the consideration to do every step right, and we have a small enough, even though it's not, it's a sizable grow that we have here, it's small enough to pay attention to everything. Things don't get overlooked. We're not spread so thin that we have to cut corners. These are the things you see when you scale up. You lose craft when you scale because it's hard to delegate craft. It's hard to delegate what one person does to an army of employees.
Right, that's a great word, the craft. And I refer to you guys as kind of the boutique, with a similar vein. In
Absolutely.
That it's like you're handcrafted, you're monitoring every plant, every cola, versus these massive machine-hewn enterprises.
We are harvesting by hand. We're bucking by hand. We're doing all this process very intimately.
Yeah.
One question that you had asked earlier was, how does someone cure on small scale versus large scale? On a small scale, I was saying, in jars and burping it every 45 minutes, every other day, till you're at the right moisture. Large scale, we can't put that much weed in that many jars. It's not cost efficient or space efficient or labor efficient.
Sure.
And so what we have to do is we have to create an environment, a huge environment that is like a jar. And we treat the huge environment like a jar.
Right. Well, that's why your stuff is so awesome.
That's one part of it.
Great stuff, guys. You've only been around a few years, but I think the best is yet to come. Congrats on all your successes on the America's Cannabis Conversation. We're with Enzo and Curtis Wall here at Luma Farms in Penngrove, California on the W420 Radio Network.
America's Cannabis Conversation on W420RadioNetwork.com.